Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Gary A. Swaby, and you're now listening to our spoiler review of Luke Cage Season 2, which just came out if you're listening to this. Yeah, I'm here with Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. How you doing, Rich?
Doing pretty good, Gary. How's everybody doing today?
Yeah, I hope everyone's doing good. And also here with Miss Dana Abercrombie. How you doing, Dana?
Hello, everyone.
Hey, so yeah, we got early access to Luke Cage and we've all watched it. I haven't completely finished it yet, but I'm pretty much there, pretty much, almost there. But these guys have finished it and we're gonna talk about everything that happens in the show and give our verdict on what we feel of the show and where it ranks in the Marvel Netflix series and everything like that. So um, let's begin by talking about, how let's focus on like the story of this season. Like, what did you guys think of the direction that they went, with season 2 of Luke Cage, and did it meet your expectations? Is it what you expected? Go ahead, Dana.
Okay, well, yes, no, maybe a little bit. Here's the thing. I'm going to start off by saying for the first season, I had problems with the dialogue when it came to the first season. And for me, that completely like threw me off. Also, the storylines were kind of weak and laughable. So when it came to this season, I really was not expecting much. I figured that they would continue on, with the same tonality as before. However, I was rather happy about the improvements that they made with the dialogue. Remember, for me, last season, everything just seemed to be out of touch and out of place. It sounded like people who don't understand the African American culture basically wrote the script. I remember there was a lot of like a stay black type of dialogue, and it sounded very much like a black exploitation film. And this time they toned it down a lot, where it was just normal dialogue and normal characters speaking. And the storyline, I do feel that they improved very much. Last season, for me, it was a bit cartoonish, especially with Diamondback and, that fight at the end of the season that was reminiscent to Friday. This one, when they introduced the Jamaicans and the oh God, I'm going to call him Bushwhacker. Bushmaster, sorry. They introduced like the Bushmaster. It took more of a serious approach, and I appreciated that. But there were still some flaws that I found with the pacing. Still, the pacing to me felt like it was similar to Iron Fist. It was very slow and it was very boring. And they took what was to be a very good storyline at its core and they stretched it out, which felt like eternity for them to complete. So that for me, I can't really see can't say that they improved. They improved, but they also didn't do that well of a job compared to last season. So for me, they're dead even.
Yeah, so I, as for my thoughts on the season, I have some pretty mixed thoughts as well. Um, I definitely think it is an improvement over the first season, to some degree. But to me, even with the Bushmaster as the new villain, and then of course to a degree Mariah Stokes, I still feel neither one of those villains are as strong as Cottonmouth was. So the fact that I still haven't forgiven them for killing him last season, especially with the fact that he died halfway through the season, and then you had to pick up the pace and introduce other characters in that second half. I wasn't a fan of that. But I will say overall, I did like a little bit of the. I definitely like a lot of the performances of some of the people that were in the show. They definitely evolved Misty Knight's character because, of course, she lost her limb in the Defenders. So I'm glad to see what they did with her character as far as developing her further. I also like the Bushmaster character. And I like the fact that they showed that this character is a little three-dimensional because there were certain things to his story that made you feel sympathetic for him. But ultimately, that was still a little confusing as well. And of course, with Mariah, at the end of last season, we saw that she was pretty broken. She wanted to try to get out of, being, out of the crime game. In this particular season, she juggles around with that even further. But then, of course, at the end, she just goes full-blown villain. And, of course, meets her fate at the very, very end. So I think that character went through a lot of emotional ups and downs. I know I've seen a lot of Alfre Woodard movies where she plays characters that, they lose their minds. So I think that was perfect for her to, she's acting on something that she's already done in other films. But overall, what I like about the season is, it did, put a little bit more focus on some of the other characters. I don't really know where they can go with next season. We'll probably get into that a little bit later on in this discussion, but I think it was okay. Definitely better than both Defenders and Iron Fist, in my personal opinion, but not as good as it could have been.
Cool. Yeah, like in terms of the direction and everything this season, like I feel like the start of the season felt a lot more different to like the second half. And like I think this is like an overall issue that a lot of these Marvel shows are having now, where sometimes they have a strong first half and then a weaker second half. And I think it's probably because it's too many episodes. It's more episodes than it needs to be. But in terms of this Luke Cage season 2, I felt like at first it seemed to the dialogue and everything, like the writing, it definitely seemed a lot more urban, and they were a lot more explicit in the terms and phrases they used and everything. Like there was a lot of N bombs, which I don't really remember much of in the first season. And it felt like a really, kind of street feeling show, whereas the last one felt, very black exploitation. This one felt like straight up, street show, like Power or something, where people are selling drugs and doing dirt and everything. But I don't know. I think it kind of shifted a little bit in tone. I do think the Jamaicans, the Yardies, were a great addition, to the story. And especially, being someone who comes from Jamaican descent myself, I very much enjoyed, having people like that represented as well. And, I like the Bushmaster as well. I like, his character, his motivations in the season. I think it's a lot better than the second villain you had in Luke Cage season 1. Can't remember his name. Diamondback. Yeah. I think Bushmaster is a lot better than Diamondback was. Nobody beats, Cottonmouth. He was definitely the best one, but they decided to kill him off early. So but Bushmaster was really good. I think. I think a lot of the problems I have was just, it kind of drags eventually, and it seems like the focus on the Luke Cage character kind of changes as well. I think he's often outshined by all the other characters in the show as well, because I feel like the character development of the other characters are more interesting than Luke Cage's character growth in this season. And like, for example, like there's the whole split up with Claire and everything, where he's being very angry and aggressive and everything. But I feel like it takes a while for them to really address that later on. Like I feel like that should have been kind of a common thing, a consistent thing throughout. But after Claire leaves and everything, he just kind of goes back to being normal Luke Cage again, I feel like. And it doesn't really affect him in the long term. It was good that he had his dad though, because then that's like another kind of relationship there to just kind of keep him grounded a bit. But still, I feel like they could have gone a lot deeper with Luke Cage's character specifically. But like I said, I just feel like the other characters outshined him a lot, including Misty. Like I feel like her character progression was very interesting, and she was probably one of my favorite characters throughout this season as well. I liked the introduction of Maria Hill's daughter. I think she was a cool character. I like the whole Shades and his best friend character that he ended up well, I don't want to give up too much just now, but yeah, I like how that played out with his friend and everything. And yeah, I just feel like the other characters were more interesting. I think the whole crossover with Iron Fist probably wasn't needed, but like, I guess it's good to know that everything is still connected, and the we might see more crossovers in the future as well. But yeah, that's my overall thoughts on the direction. I think this is definitely a stronger season than the first one, just because the first season, that second half just brought the show down a lot. But this one, I think it starts strong and it kind of dies around the midpoint, and then it's mildly interesting again towards the end. So yeah, I think it's like an overall stronger season than the first one. But yeah. So yeah, I mentioned the characters and how I feel like they outshined Luke Cage, but I wanted to get some more thoughts on the other characters from you guys in particular. So what did you guys think of the progression of let's talk about the villains in particular. So like, Maria, Shades, Bushmaster. What did you feel about the progression of the villains in this show? And were there too many of them, perhaps, or did they fit into the story? And were they interesting? What do you guys think? Go ahead, Rich.
Sorry about that. It was a bit of a distraction on my end. So just to rephrase the question, you asked about the characters.
Yeah, so like in particular the villains and the antagonists, because there were quite a few different characters that you could class as antagonists.
Yeah.
So did you feel like that was convoluted, or did you feel it was a very strong part of the show, having all of them? And what were your thoughts on each of them individually? So Shades, Mariah Stokes, sorry, and and Bushmaster.
Well, I thought when they started out with Bushmaster in the first few episodes, to me, that looked like that was going to be like a very strong antagonist for the season. But then we know the character has some struggles. I know they're very anxious to get to when him and Luke Cage actually have confrontations. The very first one where he whooped Luke Cage's ass, which I was very entertained to see, by the way. Yeah, I mean, it felt like there was a lot of potential for that character to be like a serious threat. But then as the season goes on, it kind of wears down because we find out that he has issues with the drugs that he's been taking. And of course, he takes too much damage, then he needs to get healed up, stuff like that. So I think that kind of wore off of me a little bit. Mariah Dillard, who, once again became Mariah Stokes by the end of the season, I did feel as though she became a threat once she started not really caring anymore about trying to be nice and just be a dirty person, just as dirty as the other criminals that she was dealing with. She became a threat, but again, that threat was presented and then it died very quickly because only a couple of episodes later she met her fate. So I feel like the antagonists they had potential to be really, really strong. I'm not saying the performances by the actors and actresses were bad, because they weren't, but I kind of feel like they had potential, but then they tapered off at a certain point. And once again, like I mentioned, Cottonmouth from last season, that was just an excellent performance by the actor. But the fact that they took him out early in that season, I think that's what hurt last season. So he wasn't around this season for obvious reasons. I kind of feel it's hard to replace a character like that. Like I said, they had potential with Bushmaster and Mariah, but I personally don't think that those characters. I mean, they were okay for what they were, but they could have done so much more with the characters. If anything, I would say the way the season ends, it does leave a little bit of mystery towards me in regards to how they're going to handle Bushmaster moving forward and Mariah's daughter, because I feel like they can easily come back and become an issue should Luke Cage get picked up for a third season. But just the way that they handled them, I wasn't really. I mean, I thought they had potential, but I don't think they really reached the full potential. But that's not a knock on the people that actually perform, because all the performances on the show I think were pretty solid. Just the story and the way they used the characters didn't quite pan out the way that I would have hoped.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with a lot of that. Dana, what's your thoughts on the villains in this season?
See, here's the problem with me, and I think it has to do with the writers. They don't have an end game for anyone, so they just keep killing them. They aren't a threat permanently. They just, they're there for a couple episodes, and you get really kind of like attached to their progress, and they're come across as being really strong. Like, for example, Mariah, as you were saying, when she decided to no longer play nice, she just snapped and became this pure villain that I was like really interested in seeing. And then she met her fate, and that was just it. The same way with Cottonmouth previously. The show does not know what to do with their villains. And as a result, it suffers. The show suffers because of this. And all you have is like Luke Cage, who I will say, compared to last season, he has more of a personality. But that's not enough for me to invest in this show long term. And when you're saying, oh, what's going to happen with Mariah Hill's daughter and with the Bushmaster, his character going forward, I kind of feel like it's nothing, because I had the same conversation previously last year when it's like, oh, what's going to happen with Mariah? We expected her to turn all villainy and, overtake Harlem, and she met her fate as she, the way that she did. So for me, they were good. Everyone had a good performance, but it died too quickly. And so it just kind of feels like, if the writers don't care, should I care about this? Which is, I think, is unfortunate, because the actors really gave their best when it came to the series.
Yeah. Yeah, like I can agree with that. Because I definitely got attached to a lot of the, other characters besides Luke Cage. Like, I definitely don't feel like he was the strongest character in this, and I feel like we got a lot more depth to Mariah, sorry, this season as well. So yeah, like, just to know that they killed her off is a little annoying, because it's like, okay, where are you gonna go next? Because she was such a strong character. But yeah, I mean, we'll have to see what they do next. But in terms of the villains, yeah, I agree with what you guys said on that. But in terms of the supporting characters around Luke Cage, so you have, Misty Knight, you have his pops and everything. Like, what did you think of the actual supporting characters, the good guys and everything? How about you, Dana?
I felt that they were really good supporting characters. Missy, to me, she could just have her own show and she would be fine. She's a way better headliner than Luke Cage is. I'm sorry, but her progression, and remember there was this scene where she went to plant the evidence on Cockroach, and she went from being like this clean-cut kind of cop to just being real sick of everything, and she had that turn, but she went to go plant the evidence and he was already basically beheaded. I see her more as a three-dimensional character, and I really loved watching her progression as the story went on. And especially with that arm thing, when they gave her that arm, you're like, oh, she's kind of like this badass woman. And I really like that. I thought she did a really great job as well. I kind of wish we could have seen a little bit more of Rosario Dawson's character, just a little bit. That breakup situation was really abrupt, and as you were saying, he was mad in one scene and then he just seemed to return back to normal in the next. She really didn't have that much to do, and I felt that she was more fleshed out. Maybe it's because I'm watching her as a progression throughout the other shows, but she, to me, has always been like that interesting character. So I think that the supporting cast was way better than the basically Luke Cage himself. Also, can I just touch really quickly on Shades about how incredibly disappointed I was, because in my head I had like him was going to be like the last man standing guy who's going to overtake and then run everything, and the way how he met kind of his demise part was just, I hate this show. It was just so unfortunate. But yeah, I think that the protagonists in the supporting characters, they did a good job. Just not Luke Cage. They were better than Luke Cage, but I don't think it's supposed to be a part of the. Is that supposed? I don't think that's supposed to be how Luke Cage the show itself should be. I'm kind of confused that where does it fall into? Is it an ensemble piece? Because I feel like if you have Luke Cage, he should be just as strong as the other characters, and he still again isn't. So I was more interested in everyone else's stories instead of him. But the Misty for me was one of the most strongest of them all. And Mariah's daughter, she just came out of nowhere and just, I think that she was the one who was in control of everything the most. So those two, they were really good. I liked it very much so.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think this show, like this season, really made Luke seem like a boring hero a little bit, because it's like we know he's bulletproof and there's not really many ways you can kill him. So it's like he's always going to survive, you know? So it's like he was just an outside entity, whereas the other characters were really the one, like the characters around him were the ones really shining and carrying the story. And it was just like kind of Luke in the middle, just being there because, he's just the indestructible guy. So he kind of.
What upsets he's not like that in the comics. So why are they making him so boring?
Yeah, that's the question I want answered to. But
it's like they're out of their way to do this, and I am so confused.
Yeah, I mean, they had every opportunity to really tell a good Luke Cage story with how they started it with the, his relationship and everything and being angry all the time. But they just completely switched the tone after that, and he became normal. So I don't know where they were going with that. But yeah, Rich, what's your thoughts on the supporting characters around Luke Cage?
All right, so first I want to actually make a comment in regards to something you said earlier about the fact that they have Luke Cage have all these issues with Claire in the beginning of the season. I felt that was forced and definitely unnecessary because, again, I think about the fact that he has these threats that he has to take care of, but the distractions of being in the relationship and all this other stuff. But I still feel like that is because the actual threat wasn't really a significant threat at that point, that they decided to throw this stuff in here with the Claire stuff. So that was forced, unnecessary. Although I will say that I am glad that it wasn't a cliche ending where at the end of the season he gets back with Claire. I'm glad they didn't take that route because I think that would have been a little bit too predictable. So that's fine. But to get back on track with the actual supporting characters, I definitely agree that Misty was by far a character that I cared a lot about because they took her this season, and the fact that she had the whole issues with her limb, they wanted to basically empower her and show that she was still capable of doing good things, and I know if there are a lot of people out there that lack confidence that they can actually do something, to see a character like this in this light who still overcomes adversity, I think that'll be very inspirational for them. So I definitely enjoyed her character this season. I also have to give a shout out to Reggie Cathy, who played his father, because to me, obviously before we actually saw this season, we heard that this actor passed away, and I had no idea he was going to be in this season. I felt the role he played very, very significant and very interesting, considering his, the belief in God and all this other stuff that he's trying to instill in his son. And of course, the relationship that he has with him that is fractured, that he's trying to repair. I enjoyed all that stuff. I think he probably definitely had one of the better performances of the season. because I mean he was the beacon of light to try and help steer his son in the right direction, try to tell him what he should do. So, and again, with the fact that this was one of his final roles, unless he's in something else that I don't know what he's in, I definitely have to give that some recognition because I think that's important. But yeah, I thought he did a fantastic job. And this may surprise some people that I'm going to actually say this, but I actually didn't find Danny Rand as annoying this season. And that is possibly because he was only in one episode. You know, obviously that we also got you know, Colleen Wig was in another one. But yeah, to see Iron Fist in there and fighting alongside Luke Cage, Heroes for Hire, I thought that was fantastic. The only issue I had with him making that appearance is that in the same episode, he says, "I'm here to help you deal with Bushmaster." And then at the end of the episode, he says, "Oh yeah, man, I was just checking up on you. I'm gonna let you deal with this situation." So that's a little ridiculous because, you know, I would have liked to have seen a martial arts fight with all three of them. I thought that could have been interesting, but obviously they didn't take to go that route, which is totally fine. I know Iron Fist has his own season coming up as well. So that's a story for another day with whatever he has to deal with. But in terms of the supporting characters, I thought they were definitely better than the villains. But yeah, I mean, definitely Misty Knight, definitely Luke Cage's father. And of course, as Dana also mentioned, Mariah's daughter. That actress did a fantastic job. I think if Luke Cage gets picked up for a third season, they definitely will bring her back because, I mean, that's a character that kind of played both sides. If you see how everything played out with what she was doing. So I'm very, very curious to see what they do with her. But yeah, the supporting characters, they knocked it out the ballpark for me.
Cool. Yeah, I was actually gonna ask about the cameos, but yeah, Dana, go ahead. What was you gonna say?
I had no idea Reggie died. Like
Oh yeah,
I had no idea. I'm so sad right now.
oh yeah. And the sad thing about that is it was from lung cancer, and I didn't even hear. There wasn't even any news that he was even sick. It just there was a news story that popped up and said he passed away. So
No.
yeah, it's very, very, very sad to see that.
Oh man. Ah, I'm hurt.
Yeah,
And he
sad.
I didn't know wow. He's so good in it too. He's good in everything he does. Oh my, I didn't know. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sad.
Yeah, he was really good in The Wire. He was good in House of Cards.
Yeah.
He was great in this. So
But the thing
definitely
is,
a good actor.
seems to get screwed around a lot. Huh. Oh well. So sad. Great actor. And yeah, his role, he was good in it. And I like the fact that when they did the father, they didn't make it too heavy-handed. He was always just that voice that, you know, that was just there, that when he needed to have like that fatherly advice or something, he would just come. He wasn't someone who was like beating him over the head with like a message. So I like how they handled that very well.
I agree.
Yeah. So Richard already mentioned, you know, the cameo with Iron Fist, you know, and his what's her name again? His girlfriend?
Colleen Wig.
Colleen Wig, yeah. So what's your thoughts on that, Dana? Like, did they fit into the show well? Was the crossover handled properly? And
See,
did it make you like him?
here's the thing. I hate Danny Rand, but I like when he's with other people. See, for when he was in the Defenders, remember they had that back and forth little scene and, you know, they paired them up. He wasn't bad. He's the type of actor who needs someone with him. He works as good as he can't act by himself, but as long as he has that certain chemistry to balance things off with, he's passable. So I actually didn't mind him with it. They have this really weird chemistry where it just goes. So I liked when he, I didn't like seeing him there, but I like that he didn't make it even worse. So I will give him that. My whole thing is I thought it was hilarious that he was like, "I'm here to help you." And then he was like, "No, I'm not going to mess with these crazy Jamaicans. It's a little too much for me. I'm going to go back to the Midtown." So I liked him. He was okay. But he wasn't playing with those Jamaicans. And also Colleen Wig, I liked seeing her as well. It's nice that they can come in and out. And don't forget Foggy. Foggy was in like the beginning episodes. He was
Oh,
the
yeah.
lawyer. So Foggy was there too. So they all have this really great chemistry, and I think that they can help each other's shows. And Danny really needs other actors to be with him. So I did not mind that at all. I do wish that we got a little bit of the Daredevil wasn't there, but that would have been nice for them to just, come in and be like, you messing things up. I can help you if you need help. But yeah, I appreciated that. I thought it went very well. Everyone's appearance was good except for Claire Danes. Not Claire Danes. Rosario Dawson.
Yeah, there you go.
Who played Claire.
Yeah, like, Danny might be strong with the glowing hand, but them can't mess with the bad man. Them
can't mess with your bad man. We saw them, and remember they had them streets. They was lit up with their gunshots everywhere, and people getting hit in their head and running in the stores. He was like, "No, it's too much for me, man." So he bounced.
Yeah, man. So, you can't handle that. But yeah. I really hope that in Iron Fist season 2 we see maybe Luke Cage and Misty Knight, because in the comics, Misty Knight actually has a relationship with Iron Fist. I don't think they'll do that in the show though, but it would be cool if maybe she shows up.
No, she has not just a relationship; she's a full-blown family with him.
Yeah.
Well, hold on, a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to read the comics. They yeah.
Wow, I didn't know about this.
Yeah, I don't think they'll do that in the show, but I do hope that she actually is in the show though, because I think like you said, Iron Fist needs more characters around him to make him good. So,
but see, he's been doing it kind of like the comic book, so I wouldn't be surprised if they get together.
Hold on.
Okay, well, I got another question to ask them, but go ahead, Rich. I'll let you go first.
I know. I just was going to ask a very quick question. So, does something happen to Colleen to make that happen, or is she still in the picture and he just dumped her? In the comics,
I don't think they're together in the comics, are they?
No, they're not together. No.
Okay. Ouch.
Yeah, they're never together. So that's something they did with the show. But yeah, I wanted to ask, so because, Luke kind of broke up with, Claire, do you think that he's going to revisit his, relationship with Jessica Jones, maybe?
Yes, I wanted that so bad. Oh, I really, really wanted that. I would like for her to make an appearance and serve more coffee. I need more coffee. The season was lacking coffee. There was no coffee.
Oh,
well, I guess they had some coffee at the very beginning, and then that was it. It was all business after that.
It was all business after that. It was Shades and Mariah shared some coffee, but we didn't need that coffee. That was some sour coffee. It was old stale coffee.
I personally think that Shade took the L with that whole cougar situation. So that's just my opinion, though.
No, see, here's why I appreciated this, because it left me always confused. Remember, Shades is the character where you just don't know what's going to happen. Remember at the end of remember in the first season where he's like the last man standing and you're like, oh, he's the one who's going to overtake everything because he knows everything.
Yeah,
and so I was
what he was doing. I thought he was kind of using her to come up.
Yeah, I expected him to start manipulating Mariah. And remember, there was that whole scene with him and his friend, and he was like, well, do you know who killed Cottonmouth? Remember that whole situation? Yeah. So I was like, oh, he's going to turn on everybody, and he's going to be the last man standing, and he's going to inherit the club, and it's going to be great. And, the writers decided that they wanted to be janky, so we didn't get that. But I appreciated what I thought the relationship was going to be. But as the way it ended up turning out, that wasn't needed at all. Because I was slightly confused as to why she would even go to him. Was it some type of, you're just happened to be right there and I need some coffee at the moment and I'm grieving my brother or my cousin, I mean? So I was just kind of confused about their sexual interactions from her part.
Yeah, I think she just had some deep-rooted mental issues, and I guess, Shades was what she latched on to, I don't know. for support, I guess, some kind of support and coffee too, of course. But yeah, um,
Those were some awkward scenes, really awkward.
yeah, they're kind of unsettling, those scenes a little bit. Rich, you got any more thoughts on how that relationship played out? Because that was one of my questions. Like,
You're talking about with Luke Cage getting back with Jessica Jones?
well, yeah, touch on that, and then also the Shades and Mariah.
Mariah.
Yeah. I also thought that. Well, let me go with that first. First, I did think that Shades was going to turn, but then I saw, and if you saw episode 10, for those that haven't seen episode 10, I think you need to watch that before you listen to this podcast. But episode 10, when Mariah takes that deadly turn and that gruesome killing that she conducts, I would have thought, at that point, you see Shades just become a completely different person. Like, wait a second, I don't know who you are. You're a little bit too much for me. So, yeah, that was the writers deciding to take another direction. And I also was disappointed because I figured Shades was going to be the last man standing. But because of the way that they ended the season now, they have given Mariah's daughter a motive now to come back after Luke Cage as a villain if they decided to actually take that route. So, we'll have to see how they handle that. But that whole relationship was up and down. It kept you guessing for most of the season. Maybe he could turn on her, but he decided in the end not to do it. And I mean, he turned on her, but he decided to also take himself down. So that was unfortunate. As for what you said earlier, the question you asked about Luke Cage getting back with Jessica Jones, I don't know about that because she is with our boy Julio from Power, who has been resurrected on this show. So if something happens with Julio and his son next season and Jessica Jones, because we already know that was greenlit for a third season, perhaps then she will consider going back and getting herself some more coffee. But I think she's going to be with Julio at least for a little while, unless something happens in next season.
Oh, they need to kill Julio, man. Kill him on Jessica Jones too, just like Power, and have Paige be her new squeeze.
Well, I do know in the comics they had a kid, so that might happen. I guess we'll see. It's possible.
But yeah, I mean, I guess let's get on to what happens in the end and everything. And before you guys go, I just want to say, like, they made a real big mistake not keeping Shades, because I feel like he was definitely one of the strongest characters, and he could have, led right into season 3 and everything, and been like the main guy. He's like, I just like his style of acting as well. Like he's got that method of acting where it's like you don't always know what's going on in his mind, but like, he's very calculated, and I like watching that play out on screen. Like that episode where he kills his friend, that was a very kind of touching scene, for him. It was like a very strong scene. So it would have been good to have, a lot of that in the next season. So it's a shame that they kind of took him out. But
I wanted to ask a quick question. I don't want to throw you off track. I have to ask a quick question.
Yeah.
Did he have something deeper with that friend? Because I was a little confused with that. Like, I know they were very close friends, but was it more than that? Because I was very confused and I couldn't tell.
More than that?
Yes.
Oh,
Did you get that feeling, Dana, or did you think they were just good friends?
You can have a good friend without having coffee with the friend.
All right,
no coffee.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious of that, but no, continue, Gary.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they did seem kind of, too close for guys, but like, I mean, yeah, I mean, who knows, it could have been some undertones there, but that wasn't portrayed in the show, so I'm gonna take it as maybe that might not be the case, but
yeah.
Who knows?
Get all.
Huh?
I didn't get that at all.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's more like a brotherly type of love, and that's why it was hard for him to be the one to take him down. I just didn't know if it was implied that was a little bit deeper than that. The bond was definitely there, but again, like as you said, Gary, there's no documented proof of that. Like, you didn't actually see these guys actually kiss or anything on screen. I was just a little confused with that, because I know there was a couple of jokes thrown at him in the actual show where people were saying that. Some of the other people that were in there, but it wasn't no proof behind it, so it probably isn't that way at all.
Maybe it's open to interpretation, and you could view it that way. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, what's your guys' opinion on how the show ended? You know, how it, and how everything led up to it. You know, in the finale and everything. So I'll go with you first, Dana. What's your thoughts?
I hated every single moment of it. I hated it. I felt that it was a cheap way out. That whole situation with the kiss. When they remember when Mariah, I'm starting to say what you're saying. Mariah was in the prison and she got kissed by her daughter, and yep. I mean, huh?
Oh no, yeah. I was just saying, yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, so when she got kissed by her daughter, here's the thing. I can kind of see it very similar to when Mariah went and killed Cottonmouth when they were cousins. So my thing is that there was too much foreshadowing in the whole situation for me. Like, you can see throughout the whole season that she was trying to fix some type of this poison brewery thing that she was doing. And so I didn't like it at all. It was too reminiscent of last season's. And also, the whole randomness of Luke Cage inheriting basically everything, including the club, was just too random. And it felt like she knew that she was going to be murdered. And so she purposefully set out to put the club in his name. Because remember how she gave that speech? Because she was saying that it will change him. So for me, I hated it so much. It was just too corny. Again, they wiped out all the characters way too quickly. That whole Mariah scene in the prison jail thing, I didn't like it. Remember, there was the one previously when they tried to light her on fire, but then the girl came and basically cut the girl's neck off. I felt that if that was an opportunity to take out Mariah, maybe that would have been there, as opposed to let's put out a hit on her in that way. But to be taken out by your own daughter, and I felt that it was only because of, it was that guy who was seeing the daughter, because he got murdered. I felt like it was a revenge for that, and not for an overall arching thing. So I did not like it at all. I just hated it so bad, and I hated that he inherited the club. As I said before, I hated the part with Shades taking his own self down. I hated it so much.
Yeah, sounds like a lot went down there. But how about you, Rich? What's your thoughts?
So I also have to say I also was disappointed with how it ended. So just a few quick things I will say. In regards to Shades, it was unfortunate that he took his own self down. However, if it's one lesson that we do know, it's that apparently in New York City, these criminals, they get arrested, they somehow find ways to get out. So, I mean, he could still surface in the future, but I don't really know how they're going to explain how all that's going to go down if he was to get out later. As I mentioned before, I really feel like taking down Mariah the way they did, because I felt once it got to episode 10, that character really took a turn, took a very violent turn, in that she became a totally different person. The way that she was just ruthless and didn't care, who she hurt or killed, whatever. So they could have played around with that further, but then, just a couple episodes later, she's taken out. So that was unfortunate. But I will say, all of that stuff with Luke Cage inheriting the club, that definitely was put in place so that there is now a rift between Luke Cage and her daughter, because the daughter was very mad when she saw that he was the one that inherited that club. She figured she was going to definitely take that club, but that didn't happen. So I definitely see her coming back next season if it does get greenlit for another season. And of course, she is helping out Bushmaster. So she already has somebody who will be in her corner. We already know that Bushmaster, when he actually is drugged up, he is a formidable opponent for Luke Cage. Other times he will get his ass whooped. So I think they definitely have laid the groundwork for that. But then of course, we also know Luke Cage's brother, who we saw at the end of season 1, was now being, given the same type of treatments that Luke Cage was getting. I'm pretty sure he can also be an option to return for the 3rd season. But I just hope, like Dana said, if you're going to introduce a threat into this show, make it a threat that actually is a believable and withstanding threat. Because all of these villains they presented, they were just the way they were just taken out. It's just like, come on, man. I mean, Luke Cage, he needs to have a reasonable challenge. And for it to just all be resolved the way that it was resolved, that was very disappointing for me, because I want him to meet his match. And to me, that hasn't happened yet. So hopefully next season they will take that approach. But the way they ended off this season, yeah, there was a lot to be disappointed with. Still, I will say the performances were good, but the storytelling, the writing, they need to work on all of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I do want to ask you something regards to next season, but before I get into that, I wanted to ask you guys about the Jamaicans and the dialogue and everything. Because for me, I liked having Jamaicans in the show, and I liked that they showed, they didn't just show bad Jamaicans, they had working class Jamaicans as well at the restaurant and everything. So that was cool to see. But like, I wanted you guys to let me know, like, was all the Jamaican talk and dialogue too much? Was it too thick? And do you think people might struggle to like understand all that stuff? Because for me, it was like normal, but I know some people at like, Jamaican isn't English and they think it's another language or something. But yeah, like what did you guys think? Was it too thick? Was it too hard to understand? And did you think there should have been less of it? What do you think, Rich?
I personally loved every minute of that, and I don't think it was too much. I mean, I just think from my own perspective, maybe Dana might agree. I just think the way they set up the Jamaicans this season, it was to give you sympathy towards some of the characters. Now, after episode 10, there was an episode that focused specifically on Bushmaster, showed him growing up as a kid, and that gave you further context as to why he has the feud with Mariah Dillard and the whole family. So I think that was 100% necessary for them to show that, just so that the character is not just trying to get rid of her just because. There are actual motivations behind everything. So like I said, I enjoyed the fact that they have introduced them to the show, and that they tried to introduce that they also had struggles as well. It wasn't just about trying to hurt others. They actually had a motive behind why they wanted to do what they did. So I enjoyed it. I don't think it'll be too much for some people. And I think that the majority of people that do watch this show, they also are going to feel some type of sympathy towards this character as well. At least once they actually get through the season and they actually see what all he had to go through. But again, that's just my opinion. I don't know if everyone will have the same opinion, but I didn't have any issues with the Jamaicans. I thought that was an excellent choice for the season.
Cool. What about you, Dana?
Okay, see, what happened is I love the Jamaicans. I think they add good flavoring and seasoning to the show. It was nice and spicy, and I like the backstories. I couldn't understand a single thing that was going on, but I will say I'm very grateful for the power of closed captions because it helped with the dialogue.
I don't understand. Closed captions were real off sometimes, but yeah.
But here's no. I felt that the closed captions helped to translate what they were saying.
Yeah, some of them were actually really good. Like, because some of them I was like, wow, how did they know what that means? But like, there were ones where there was like maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or something where it didn't make much sense. But yeah, for the most part, it was good.
I love the Jamaicans. I love the culture. I like how they went and dove in and, didn't try to change their culture or even whitewash the situation. I do. But I was very grateful for those closed captions because I don't understand the accent or the dialect at all. So I liked it. I hope they continue with it, but you just keep up those closed captions and I'll be good. And I loved him as a villain. He wasn't a villain. He was just a man who had a mission, and it was fueled by something that happened, since his childhood. And so I really appreciated that. And I liked how they made him very three-dimensional. I do have one question though. The syrup thing or whatever it was that made him have the superpowers and really strong and crazy. I wonder if it was the same from Jessica Jones. Remember when they was dealing with that? Kind of like that super drug?
That is a very good question.
So I wonder if that's a type of crossover drug. And that would be very nice. And if it takes all of New York City, how it affects all of the other shows.
Well, actually,
I was going to say something about. Yeah, go ahead, Rich.
Oh no, I was just going to say. Well, actually, now that you mentioned that, I did want to ask that question because they did not resolve that drug issue by the end of this season. So that's going to probably continue.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that, but I'll get to it in a sec. But I think Bushmaster, what he should do is he needs to visit Wakanda and get some of those herbs, man.
Yeah, Gary, there is no more Wakanda because Thanos has destroyed half the city.
Yeah, well, it depends when the show is set. I don't know when the show is set though.
But I wonder if like in Fantasyland, because we were already told that even though Alfred Woodward is in both Black Panther, what was it, Civil War, who was connected to Black Panther, that it's not the same character as Mariah. But I was still slightly wondering if that was like some secret undercover operative thing, and so he can get to Wakanda through her. But she's dead now, so yay!
Oh, so they confirmed that it wasn't the same character?
I confirmed that it's not the same, because everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, it's connected!" And the showrunner, and plus the other guy who's Ryan Coogler, who's a part of Black Panther, and the other one when he was doing Civil War, they're like, "It's not the same character."
Yeah, I think for the most part the shows are the show is separate from the movies, but they just throw in the references just to make it feel connected, but it's really not.
But Fantasyland, she's from Wakanda. Remember, she was in Africa. Her son was murdered, so it's the same character for. I don't care.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, but Bushmaster needs some of them herbs though, man. We need a Jamaican Black Panther, man.
We Oh my gosh, I can't with you. Oh god. But no, remember Black Panther's busy in Detroit right now. No, I messed up the movies. He's in this stone. Sorry. I was thinking directly of Black Panther the movie and I forgot that Infinity War existed.
Yeah.
But yeah, the drugs. I think the drugs is the overlaying theme of all of the shows is going to be, because that was the same one that that girl whose name I can't remember from Jessica Jones, her boyfriend was on. So
yeah. So I'm going to get into theories for what's going to happen next in both Luke Cage and Marvel. So I mean, I'm not really too sure on in terms of Luke Cage, but based on what you just said with the drugs, I hope that this kind of leads into and sets up the next big villain for the Defenders. And what I want to happen is I want Kingpin to get out, because he was a strong character in Daredevil, and I feel like he can be like a main villain for each of these characters. So I want him to maybe get out and try and maybe get a hold of these drugs, and there will be a bunch of superpowered people that are commanded by Kingpin, and that will form the Defenders to try and stop them and take them out and everything. So I'm hoping that's the direction they go in. But
we're not getting a Defenders. We said no.
We're not getting another one?
No, we're not getting another Defenders.
So they're keeping everything separate?
Yeah, I mean, no, they'll cross over into each other's shows, but we're not getting the Defenders no more.
Marvel is defending us from watching another bad show, so I applaud that move.
I mean, like, because it's kind of sad, because it could have worked if they just did something good, like if they did it better. Like, it would have been great if they did it right, but I guess I see, a lot of people said that one was bad, so I can see why they wouldn't want to do anymore. But yeah, I mean, they definitely need to bring back the Kingpin though, whether it's in Daredevil or one of the other shows. They definitely need to bring him in, and they need to have a few of them team up to try and take him out. But yeah, in terms of Luke Cage, I'm not really sure. My question for you guys was going to be, where do you, like, first of all, before we get to other theories, where do you think Luke Cage is going for season 3? What do you want to happen ideally in Luke Cage season 3? So go ahead, Dana.
So as you can tell, he got the club at the end. I'm seeing a power crossover.
Jamie St. Patrick. Tommy Egan.
Tommy's gonna come make an appearance and start living in Harlem. Oh gosh, I do see him trying to. I see the club eventually going back to Mariah's daughter. I don't think Luke Cage wants any parts of that, and I don't think it's gonna work out. So I see it going back to the daughter. But for the meantime, until then, I see him trying to struggle as a club owner very reluctantly, and him fighting Bushmaster Whacker, and just that. I don't. Mariah's daughter, I hope, is going to come back and have a stronger appearance and bring back more of her poison lipstick. But I can't, that's all I can see. I don't even know in that regard. I just see that, he is not going to be able to handle that club. And what I want Fantasyland is for Mariah's monologue to come true. Remember, she was saying the club will change him. So in Fantasyland, I do wish that it does change him, and he actually has a personality now, and it's more of him walking that thin line between what's right and what's wrong. And maybe he has to turn a little extra criminally in order to get the Bushmaster. So I wonder if that will happen as well. I like the fact that they kind of teased them being a suit. Remember, throughout the whole season, it was like him as superhero for hire, basically. And it was a suit. I do want him to get some type of suit. And I do want him to struggle and walk between the line of what's right and maybe what's wrong, and find that in between. And I do want more character development. I don't think we're going to get any of this. But I do feel that Mariah's daughter is going to have a stronger focus, and she's going to be teaming up with Bushmaster and be a part of being a villain as well. But, again, if there's the same writers, I do see her meeting some type of end maybe in the middle of that season.
Yeah, that's some good theories. And I definitely agree with in terms of the club, because the Luke Cage we have now, he's too much of a goody two shoes. So to be able to run a club, he has to change in some way, like, because a lot of dirt happens in clubs, whether you want to run a straight and narrow club or not. The type of people who are going to come to the club, they're going to be into some dirt. Like, there's going to be some stuff going on. And I feel like, Luke Cage kind of needs to change to be that kind of club owner that people want to, because a club owner has to reflect his club, like, and people are not going to want to go to the club if he's this boring goody two shoes guy. So he definitely needs to show some type of personality and some change in his character, I think, to be a club owner. So I agree with that, and I'm thinking maybe if they get Danny Rand involved again, they can do the real heroes for hire thing, with both of them, and maybe Danny Rand could be the one that kind of pulls him away from the bad side a little bit, because maybe he goes a little too dark, and then Danny Rand's there to kind of pull him back. So maybe that could be one of the themes of the next season, but we'll see. What do you think, Rich?
I think you both have brought up some very good points. I do like the idea of him struggling to deal with the club and deal with what's right and what's wrong. That'll be a great way to, try to develop the character further. But if I had to make a guess as to what they're going to do, season 3, if they do not take the approach of him having to deal with being a club owner and change his whole mindset, I honestly think what they will do is they will say, we're not going to have a Luke Cage season 3. Let's wait to see how Iron Fist does, and then let's just have a Heroes for Hire season that combines both Luke Cage and Danny Rand. Because maybe I will be the only one to really think and feel this, but the chemistry between Luke Cage and Danny Rand in episode 10, I think when that happened in the season for me, that was when it got to be a little bit more interesting. I'm not saying anything before it wasn't good, but I thought that stood out because he was in that episode. So I'm thinking a lot of people may see that and they may respond to that episode more than the whole season, to all of season 2 as a whole. So I would say they might avoid giving Luke Cage a season 3. They might avoid giving Iron Fist a season 3, and they just might have those characters come together for just a separate season, Heroes for Hire. But that's just my opinion, because they could still go in the other direction that you guys already mentioned.
Yeah, that would actually make sense if they combine them. I think that's actually a good thing to do, because it's like, especially if Iron Fist 2 sucks, because this season it was better than the first one, but only slightly, and it did kind of drag. So I feel like, they kind of combining them would definitely be a better idea, because, like you said, they have good chemistry together, and I feel like we don't always need 13 episodes of Iron Fist and 13 episodes of Luke Cage, but putting them together, that's something completely different. So maybe that would work better. So yeah, that's something they should definitely consider, I think. So that's a good prediction. Go ahead, Dana.
Am I the only one who thought it was slightly corny in episode 10 when they was like fighting together and he did the Iron Fist thing and then he went and hit Luke Cage's hand? It was like some Super Twins activate.
Yeah, that was corny. That was corny. Yeah.
It worked though. And the choreography, the fight choreography improved greatly. But it was just so corny at the same time. But it does work. I see a little one shot of that, of maybe they can do a little spin-off really quickly, like 4 episodes of them teaming up together. It was cute.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely agree. I definitely agree it was corny. Also, but yeah, I mean, we'll see what path they go. I know they had the little dialogue back and forth where he was trying to help him get focused, and I think that was put in place for a reason, that they could come back to revisit that later and say, okay, well, you've gotten better, you've improved, but you can do so much more if you just work with me even more. But we'll see what path they take. Again, I mean, it all depends, because, again, Jessica Jones got picked up for a 3rd season. So I think it's definitely possible for the same to happen for both Luke Cage and Iron Fist 2. But we'll see what Netflix decides to do.
Cool. And my last question was going to be like, oh, well, you kind of debunked it, actually, because I was going to be like, what do you think is going to happen to lead into Defenders season 2? But you already said that's not happening. But I do want to ask what you guys think of the long-term plan for these shows at this point in time. Like, because we've had Punisher, we've had Jessica Jones 2, we've had Luke Cage 2, we're getting Iron Fist 2. I guess the only thing left is Daredevil 3. So, like, what do you think is going to happen in the long run with these shows, and will any of the Disney business affect it? Because they are starting their own streaming service. I'm not sure what's going on there, but yeah, what would you guys think is the future for all of these shows? Go ahead, Dana.
I think they're gonna just keep adding and adding. Remember, we're getting Night Moon coming up soon. But in regards to the, what is it, the 3-4 shows that we have now? 3? 4? I'm not sure. Anyway, so the ones that we have right now, I don't see them lasting very long, as in like we're gonna be in season 10 and 12. I see them lasting maybe season 5 and they would move on to other characters and other properties. And now that we have 20th Century Fox, remember they bought them. Disney bought them as well. So I see that there's going to be a lot more characters. It's going to get their own show. So that's what I see. But the ones that we have now, I don't see them lasting very long, and I don't want them to last very long because honestly, they're really not that good, aside from Daredevil and Punisher, and maybe Jessica Jones, but they're not that great. So yeah, they need to come to an end, season 5, and then we'll just add other shows. So I don't have a problem with that. And then with the streaming service, everything that's on TV now is going to just get transferred over. So remember, we have Marvel's Cloak and Dagger. It seems to be I'm the only one who's watching that. And we still have The Shield. So I see that coming over. I do really wish that we could get some type of crossover, but they kept saying that they're not going to do that. But I do see there just being more properties added and having more TV shows. So I don't mind that. But in regards to these core ones right now, I don't think they're going to last that long. Just because for me, they don't, unless they get brand new writers and they do something different with the creative team, they don't have much to say. They're just not good. Sorry.
And how about you, Rich?
Well, I personally think that yeah, I do believe that some of these shows won't last for too much longer. I mean, I know that this is in no way connected to the actual Marvel Cinematic Universe, the stuff we see on the big screen, but I will say that I definitely think that they'll take the same route. Whereas, Marvel has already said there's going to be massive changes to a lot of the movies that they released from Phase 4. So I feel like you're definitely going to see changes as far as the Netflix shows are concerned, too. I mean, we already know Daredevil Season 3 is coming. We already know that Punisher has got greenlit a Season 2. So, yeah, we know that's coming in addition to Jessica Jones Season 3. So I'm curious to see what happens after that. As Dana mentioned, they do have other properties that they can explore. I personally would love to see them do something with some of these other characters that have been begging to come back, like Blade, for example. So I'm curious to see what Netflix does, because they definitely have, working with Marvel, they have a lot of options in terms of what they could do. And then again, with the whole Disney streaming service, I'm curious to see how that's going to also turn out as far as everything moving down the line, because there will be some changes. But in regards to the quality of the shows, I still think Daredevil is by far the best Marvel Netflix show that they have done, and I would say Punisher is right up there with that. Everything else, it definitely can use some improvement. And Iron Fist and Defenders, I think Defenders is without a doubt the worst show that they have done, but Iron Fist not too far behind that. So that's just my opinion, but overall, still think that the future is bright for these shows, but there's definitely going to be some changes to shake things up moving forward, I would say.
All right, so yeah, there you have it. That was our thoughts on Luke Cage season 2. And we definitely want to get some of the thoughts of you people listening as well. So be sure to leave us your comments and look out for more coverage on, all the Marvel movies and TV shows and, other TV shows in the future. Definitely check out thecoalition.com for more entertainment news and video gaming, of course. And yeah, make sure you're subscribing to our YouTube page and following us on Twitter, Facebook, and every outlet on the internet, basically. But that's pretty much it from us for now. Thanks for listening, and definitely leave your comments below. Peace out.
Peace out.